In my mind, it's very similar to thinking about like community controlled military. Like, who are we actually going to be sending folks to be bombing? Or who are we actually going to say, you need more tanks in this place? Because the institution of policing as a whole is meant to be, is functioning as, and will forever function as, a tool of control, a tool of repression, a tool of like criminalization and dehumanization, and upholding the power of people who are profiting off of the exploitation and dehumanization and death of oppressed communities. And policing has not ever been meant as a tool to protect and serve Black people, poor people, undocumented folks, queer, gender nonconforming, and trans people. It's meant to be a tool to maintain the status quo and keep people in line. And if you can't be kept in line, you go into a cage or you die. And so there is not a way to reform the thing because it is not actually broken. This is a tool meant to control and repress and restrict the movement of people. And so number one, I'm like, I don't actually know what community control of policing looks like in a concrete way. And it, to me, I'm like, so, okay, let's say maybe a cop murders someone and then they get fired and they go through the court system, but that's not actually keeping more folks from being murdered. We're still saying we think it's important to pay people to surveil our folks, to bring trauma and violence into our communities. When we actually know that what communities are calling for, what communities are demanding, and oftentimes what communities are defining as safety, is we want more safe spaces for our young folks to go to. We want more investment in education. We need access to good food. We need more affordable housing. And if we're upholding these institutions, which in major cities hold between like 40 to 60% of the city budget in the general fund, but they say they don't have money for education or for after school programs, then to me, the straightforward shot of it would be, let's give community control of the budget, see what happens with policing, because I don't know how many folks are actually going to be calling for that. And let's actually put the money directly into the things that we know that we need for our communities to be stable, for our communities to thrive, for our communities to define what safety looks like for themselves and to keep each other safe. And let's chip away at the shit that we know is not working and has not been working for us. Because if we're prioritizing us as the people who need to have the power to be self-determined, then we know police are not supporting the self-determination of poor folks, of marginalized people, however we define that, as folks that are being most impacted by policing. I don't know of who's calling for more cops. And I think the argument of like, our people aren't ready yet, or this is the first step towards abolition. Community-controlled policing is actually trying to legitimize policing as something that's actually going to keep us safe one day. And we have had thousands upon millions of examples of how policing has endangered the lives of our folks, however we're defining our folks. For me, I'm talking a lot about Black folks and queer people and poor people. And I think like if we're actually trying to talk about what's going to keep us safe, what has kept us safe is ourselves. And the thing that is putting us in danger, the thing that's dividing us, the thing that tries to isolate us from community, a big part of that is policing. Policing is a major tool of systems of power, whether we're talking about gentrification, whether we're talking about education, whether we're talking about access to quality food and labor rights. Policing is a tool that's used to enforce the status quo and push back on people demanding equal access, demanding self-determination, demanding food sovereignty. Policing is a tool that is used for all of those things. Policing is a tool that is used to push Black people out of Oakland. Policing is a tool that is being used to push Black folks out of Atlanta and the West End. And so in addition to looking at what the impacts of all of these things are, I think it's important to look at the tools that are being used to implement those things, and that is policing. And so when we want community control of our food, that means we have to get rid of the police. When we want community control of our education system, we're going to have to get rid of the police. And so I think when we say community control, yes to community control, but that also means we have to get rid of the tool that's taking away our control and our ability to actually be self-determined people.